All right, detoxes, do they work? The simple answer is yes and no. So we really have to look at detoxification in the aspect of what it really means. So many people are on the internet and they think, oh, detox. So like, I'm gonna eat really healthy and I'm gonna get rid of any toxins in my body. And after I eat really healthy for 2 weeks on my clean eating diet, I'm gonna be great and I'm not gonna have any more toxins. That's not really how that process works. And there are so many factors that we need to take into account. So as usual, I have clients who come to me and say, oh, we've tried this detox or that detox. And then I say to them, how do you know that your child needed to detoxify? How do you know that your child had heavy metals and needed to detoxify? Well, then they look at me like, what do you mean? And I say, have you tested? Do you know that they have these heavy metals or environmental toxins or these toxins in their body that they need to detoxify? Well, no, I saw on the internet about this, that, or the other thing. I think it's TRX, which is like a heavy metal detox. Oh, we used TRX. Well, how do you know your child needed to detoxify? And was their body prepared to detoxify? So that is the big question with detoxes. Yes, depending on how you do them, they are effective if your body is ready to detoxify and if you know what your body needs to detoxify. You need to go into it with the data so that you know if and when your body is ready and what needs to actually be detoxified. So many people think, oh, I'm going to take this binder and it's going to get rid of all these toxins. So I parent after parent talk to me about, oh, well, binder this, binder that. Yes, binders are necessary. We have our own binder. But you can't just put in a binder and hope that all of the toxins are just going to be whoosh, washed away. That isn't how it works. So we're going to talk about really the biological aspect of how it works, what we need and how we prepare, and all of the different kinds of toxins that we're going to look at. So your liver, and people here, you'll hear this on the internet all the time. This is where the internet gets me because I'm like, that's not necessarily true. So you will hear on the internet, well, if you have a liver, you detoxify fine. But that's not necessarily true because one, you can have a toxic burden in your body that you are having a hard time detoxifying because you don't have enough nutrition, or maybe you have fatty liver within the liver to do this process. So there's a 3-step process in your liver for detoxification. And you're not just detoxifying, like your liver is, yes, your major fish filter. It's filtering out all of the things. But we have detoxification pathways like our lymph, our kidneys, those are our bowels. These are different ways that we are going to detoxify. So it does not just fall on your liver. Your liver is not the whole just detoxification piece in your body. It's not just there being like, hello, I just do detox. That's not what happens. So we have to look at the liver and the fact that the liver does 3 stages. You have stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So you have to understand that most toxins are fat soluble, meaning they hide in your fat cells. They are going to hide in your fat. Toxins love fat. They're going to be in your fat. So know that, if you are actually obese or overweight, you may actually have more toxins in your body because you have more fat cells for those toxins to bind to. So there's that piece. So your body has to take these fat soluble toxins from phase 1 and start to bind them with different nutrients, things like glutathione and folate and B12 and magnesium, in order to start to turn them into water soluble. Our whole goal with detoxification is to take these fat soluble toxins and turn them into water soluble toxins. So that's where that 3-step process comes in your liver. You're gonna conjugate all of these things, they're gonna bind, and we are gonna take fat soluble, turn it into water soluble. We are gonna start to detoxify the liver through our sweat, through our bladder, through our kidneys, through our poo. So there's all of these pathways that we are gonna get rid of these toxins. So one, you have to make sure that when you're gonna detox, that your liver is ready to detox. Do you have the nutrition to be able to detoxify and not feel like poop? Because most people will start a detox and they feel like, oh, I feel so bad. They feel like poo because they do not have the right steps in place to start to detoxify. So you have to understand that there is a process that your liver goes through. Your lymph, which is another way that we detoxify, it does not work on a pump. Most everything in our body is, muscles are squeezing, tightening. Lymph doesn't work that way. So sometimes we have to do things to encourage our lymph to detoxify, like dry brushing or jumping up and down. Jumping up and down is one of the best ways to detoxify your lymph. You can get lymphatic massage. So different ways that you can start to detoxify from your lymph system. You have your liver, you have your lymph system. You have to make sure that you have the nutritional support for your kidneys, for your bladder, for your gut. So your gut is actually going to play a big part in detoxification. So you're going to poop it out, right? Part of it. So if you are constipated, so if you have a kid who's constipated and you're like, man, we're going to get this binder and we're going to put this binder in and we're going to start to detoxify, and you have a kid that's constipated, not going to turn out so hot. Why? Because they're not able to properly move their bowels to get rid of the waste. So in that respect, that waste product in your gut, especially if you have leaky gut and you're constipated and it's just sitting there, it's going to keep getting recycled through your kidney and your livers and your kidney and your liver and your kidney and your liver over and over again until your child finally goes poop. And then you're going to do the same process again. So you have to consider that if you have a constipated child, you should not be putting in a binder. You should not be trying to detoxify these things. And if you've never tested, I don't recommend going whole hog on a detox anyway. When we test, when we look at the data, we are able to know what toxins are impacting your body. A lot of people have what's called endotoxins. These are toxins that are made inside your body. So when you hear the word toxin, and really when we think about toxins or really toxicants, toxin comes from a plant, like you have a toxic plant or animal like frogs, those poison frogs. In chemical terminology, it's really a toxicant. For this process, we're going to call it a toxin. So when we are looking at toxins, you have your outside toxicants, so the chemicals, all of these chemicals that are in our environment, but then you also have endotoxins, toxins that are made inside your body. Do you know what endotoxins your child is making? You don't know unless you test. You don't know if they're making endotoxins unless you test. This is where we are looking at gathering the data so we know what step-by-step process your child needs, because everybody we work with is going to be unique. Everybody we work with is going to have a different place in the process. So when it comes to endotoxins, those are those toxins that are made inside. So let's, a really easy to talk about endotoxin is mold. So we breathe in mold. Mold, I just did this on Sunday. I opened this bucket in the garage and I was going to throw a bunch of stuff away, and I looked down and then I started to dig and I was like, oh my God, it's mold. And I could smell it, and I put the lid back on and I came in and I was like, nobody open this bucket. We're just going to take it to the dump. Nobody open the bucket. It's covered in black mold, like awful. So this is mold. Mold, when we breathe in mold, we breathe in the spores and they become what's called mycotoxins. When they get wet, they become mycotoxins in our body. They become a very specific toxin of mold in the body, and it can continue to proliferate, especially if you are continuing to live in a moldy environment. Like maybe you have mold in your house and you're continuing to live in that environment. You're going to keep breathing in those mold spores and making mycotoxins inside your body. So those are a form of endotoxin. Bacteria in your gut, gram-negative bacteria in your gut especially, makes toxic products. It makes toxic waste in your body. Especially things like lipopolysaccharides. That is a toxin, an endotoxin that is being made in your body. If you have a gut that's out of balance, maybe you have some pathogens or some overgrowths or things like that in your gut, your body is going to make more of these endotoxins. Fungus, things like we talked about mold, but things like candida, they are going to make endotoxins. They are going to make their own waste byproducts of toxin in your body. So one, you have to look at inside, what's happening with the toxins in your body that your body is making. You don't know what toxins your body is making and how to detoxify those unless you test. So you could just guess, and you're going to hear on the internet, everybody has parasites, everybody has heavy metals. I've looked at hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of tests and data. And that is not the case. Yes, I have a few people who might have heavy metals, and yes, I have a few people that might have parasites, but I have a lot of more people who have other kinds of things going on. So one, you have endotoxins. Two, you're gonna have these toxicants from outside. So What are those things in your health and beauty products? Like, what are you brushing your teeth with? Fluoride is toxic. We go to the dentist, you gotta have the fluoride. Fluoride is toxic, it pushes iodine out. So you have things like fluoride. You have things like the fire retardants that they put on your furniture, which is also gonna push out iodine. But over time, your furniture, as it starts to age, those little fibers are gonna flake off, and then you get dust that's contaminated with toxins. So if you're like me, maybe you're not dusting and mopping every single day to get those contaminants off. If you have a little kid who's on the floor, they spend a ton of time on the floor, they're more likely to have this toxic exposure to things like the flame retardants that are on your furniture because they're always in it. They're always playing in it. And kids eat more, breathe more, which means they are more susceptible to toxins, also because their detoxification pathways are not fully mature. So there's a lot of factors that come into dealing with toxins. So you got your beauty products. You've got your toxic furniture. You're welcome, everybody. You've got the things that you're cooking in. So the nonstick pans that are leaching the chemicals into your food. You have the plastic water bottles that you're drinking out of. You have the plastic and Tupperware that you're storing your food in. You know, when you put hot spaghetti sauce into Tupperware and it turns red, it's not staining it. It is actually becoming part of the plastic because those little pores open up and that spaghetti sauce seeps in. You are welcome. It is not a stain. It is a permanent spaghetti sauce in your Tupperware. So if the spaghetti sauce can get into your Tupperware, the chemicals in the plastic can get into your food. So there's so many. We talked about toxins, but we're looking at over 150,000 different chemicals on the market, and only very few of those have been tested on human beings. Some are tested on animals. But a lot of them are just considered safe because when we talk about toxins, we're looking at the dose doesn't make the poison. Meaning, what's tested for toxins is short, high dose exposure, ooh, you're toxic. Not long, low dose exposure. So we have to look at how long are you being exposed to things. So when we're looking at the toxins, for me, it's always about the data. We want to know, does your child have toxins, endotoxins, or outside toxins, exotoxins, or, and are they in a place where they need to detoxify? I have never, ever taken on a client, knock on wood, I'm going to say knock on wood right now because I don't like to say never because then it happens. But at this point, I have never taken on a client where we jump right in and we're like, we're going to do a detox. Because we have to make sure that they are prepared for that. So I will tell you that I have a lot of clients that come to me who have a lot of chemical toxic exposure, glyphosate, other herbicides, fuel additives, things like that are, in their water, in their environment, all of these things. But we don't just jump in with the detoxification because they are not prepared. When we look at all of the data, when we look at all of the testing, we can see, ooh, this kid has some mold exposure, so they're making these mycotoxins. They may have some fungal exposure. They may have some leaky gut. They may have some, a lot of inflammation. If we don't reduce the leaky gut, the inflammation, the mold exposure, all of these things first, they're not going to be in a place to detoxify. This is why when my clients work with me and we're working on toxins, it's actually one of the last phases we do, and we do it very gently because we know we've worked up to having them prepared to properly detoxify. So when you're on the internet and you're reading all of the things on Dr. Google about natural ways for tics and Tourette's, all of these things that might impact your kid, you cannot just hop into a detoxification. One of the things that we hear all the time is heavy metal toxicity. You need an HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis test. And we can look at those tests and see, like, do you have aluminum? Do you have mercury? But really what needs to happen is we need to start with the 4 macro minerals that are on that test and make sure they are in balance before we start detoxifying anything else. If you start to try and push out copper before you balance your 4 macro minerals, you're gonna have a kid who is off the wall, terrible behavior, feels really awful, and is having a really rough copper detox. Copper detox is very, very brutal, to be honest. It is not fun. And so we wanna make sure when we're looking at things like a heavy metal test, do you have the proper magnesium, calcium, potassium, and sodium to be able to even start to detoxify when we're doing an HTMA. Or even the heavy metal test that I do. I can bring up a urine heavy metal test that we've done and look at kids and be like, oh, is your kid playing on a turf field? Have they been, are they playing on these rubberized playgrounds? We can look at those actual toxins. We can look at glyphosate. This is where I feel like if you're interested in detoxifying, you have to have the test first. Like right now, I'm doing my own detox. But I have done some testing and I know that I've had some mold exposure, probably from the wine I've been drinking, so I'm not drinking wine. That's a whole nother story. But I am doing my own detox, but there are so many different ways to start to detoxify. So one is you can start doing supplemental detox, which is what most people do. They grab some, like I said, TRX. That's not an item that I recommend. It's just what parents come to me with. They grab it and they're like, oh yeah, we're doing this detox. And I'm like, I don't think you're in a place to really start to detoxify. So there's that, but there's other things that you can start to do to help with detoxification and making sure that your detoxification pathways are open. We have to make sure that the liver and the kidneys are flowing. If you have a clog in your drain, your drain's clogged, it's clogged up, there's, the water's building up in your drain, you've got a hairball in your drain, and you just keep putting water in it, eventually it's going to overflow, right? And it is the same thing when we start to try to detoxify, is we have to make sure that there's no clog in our drain. We have to be able to make sure that we have the nutrients and the support so that we don't overflow. If you overflow, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna feel like poo, your child's gonna feel like poo. So one, we have to make sure that those pathways are open. Two is there's so many different ways that we can do that. We can employ supplements to help, because supplement is a supplement. It is not a cure-all. It is there to help you in the process. So we can use a supplement, but we can also use things like sauna. We can use things like sweating, exercising, jumping up and down. Those are just a few. You can get lymphatic massage. You can get other massage. You can, hot Epsom salts baths. There are all sorts of ways that you can help the body to detoxify, but you need to know, one, what do you need to detoxify? What's going on in your body that you need to detoxify? What is it? And two, is your body ready to detoxify? This is always why I talk about we want to test. We want to look at what are these things that your body needs to do. Helpful? Everybody, does that make sense in the detoxification process? Your liver has 3 steps, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We are taking fat-soluble toxins and turning them into water-soluble and detoxifying them. We have to make sure that we have the right nutrients in each phase of liver detoxification to detoxify in our liver. We have to make sure that our lymph is moving. Like I said, it doesn't work on a pump. You have to do things like jump up and down, exercise. This is why sitting on your ass all day is not beneficial to you. Then we have to look at what is it that you need to detoxify, because you're gonna use different products for different detoxification. So those are some of the steps about do detoxes work. Do they work? Yes. But they are only going to work if you are doing the right steps in the process. Otherwise, you're gonna feel real bad and you're gonna be real upset and you're gonna have a kid who is not happy, and then you're gonna say, well, why is my kid not happy? And I'm like, well, because they have all of these other underlying things and you're trying to push out detoxification when they are not ready. That is why it is a very slow process. So no, I do not look at the internet and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna detoxify. This is why with my clients, we have client exclusive products. General public cannot get some of these because we do have some detoxification products that we use, but I don't let the general public have access to them because they don't know what they need to detoxify and if they're ready to detoxify. That is really my big two about detoxes. What do you need to detoxify? Are you ready to detoxify?